Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie and I am your astrologer. I am stoked to be back. Today is April 1st, 2021. This is the second week back. I hope you guys enjoyed that Libra full moon that we had. It was quite a doozy. I'll give you guys a couple minutes just to see who shows up in the chat. We are streaming live, so feel free to comment, to share, to ask questions. I will come in and out of the chat intermittently to address some of your guys' astro questions. But yeah, this week we are going to focus on really taking a look at the month of April and what the astrology has to offer us. So I hope you guys are excited to take a look at this in depth. This is probably going to be like the last video. I'm going to put more emphasis in talking about and discussing the aspects and the transits that are going to take place for the entire month of April. We'll go transit by transit and touch on a little bit about what they mean and what we can expect. Towards the end of this video, I will discuss how it is going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. So please stay tuned, and hopefully we're going to have somebody in internet land that's going to be kind enough to go and plug in those timestamps, fingers crossed. Usually there's always somebody who's there who's willing to do it. So whoever does, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. So just coming off of this energy of the Libra full moon, I really feel like, I don't really know what to say. I heard from a lot of clients, I heard from a lot of friends, I heard from a lot of other astrologer friends about all of the events that took place. It was especially challenging because of that opposition that we had between the sun and the moon and the sun-Venus conjunction to Chiron. So what we're coming off of now, we're kind of getting into Aries season, is this self-awareness, right? Because Aries is the self, and the sun shines a light on our ego, our heart space, what we really want, what we really need, and really lends energy to that motivation. So we'll talk a lot more about Aries this week and kind of discuss a little bit about how we can put that energy to best use, especially because we're going to be coming in to a now Aries new moon, which will be taking place closer to the 11th. My plan for you guys is the beginning of every month, I'm just going to discuss and talk to you about what you're going to expect for the month ahead. You will get a new moon video, you will get a full moon video, so don't worry, I'm not totally going to go in depth into that today. We will talk about it a little bit so you guys have the dates and the degrees, but as we get closer, we're going to let the energy build into those lunations, and that way we can really kind of dive deep that week. Those of you guys who follow my social media and you know a lot about my background also in tarot, stay tuned because I'm going to start dropping tarot videos, so it's going to give you even more insight if you really want to see more the kind of witchy esoteric stuff and you want to get a really in-depth view of what's going to be happening for your particular sign when it comes to the tarot reading. So I'm very excited to get into doing that because I haven't really kind of gotten in that yet. I definitely do tarot in my one-on-one sessions, but I have yet to really jump into the YouTube game of the tarot reader. So I'm really excited to be doing that. Hi everybody, thank you for coming. I see all of you guys in the chat. Hi Allison, hi Susan, Lady Snake Priestess, nice to see you. Good morning, Marisol. And Brown Bruja, thank you for coming back, all my ladies. It's so good to see all of you, especially because you guys are all peppered in different time zones. So it's awesome to see all of my friends connect from all over the place. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what April has to offer us because, wow, I feel like the energy is really going to start actually moving forward this month. We're kind of coming up out of the pileups that we had with all the planets in Aquarius in February. March was a little bit of a question mark, I think, for many people because of all that Pisces energy and the mutable squares that we were experiencing. So for those of you guys who are like, I just feel stuck, things aren't really moving forward, I feel like this is where the year actually begins. So there's really a lot of good news in the month of April. I see, for the most part, at least for like the first 20-ish days of the month, it's going to be quite lovely, especially if you have a lot of planetary aspects or placements in Gemini or in another air sign, or if you have a lot of planets in Aries. This is a very powerful time for you, or other fire signs. So remember, air fuels fire, right, guys? So what happens this month? Well, the energy moves forward, like majorly, especially because we have a lot of placements where we're putting emphasis on Aries, which is the self, right? Aries focuses on self, willpower. It's cardinal, it's instinctual, it's busy, it's action oriented. It just wants to go. So this is an important time for you to know where Aries and Gemini is in your natal astrology, because these are the two powerhouses that we are going to be dealing with for the most part of, like, you know, the first 20-ish days of the month. Maybe you don't know where these houses are. Maybe you've never looked at your natal chart. A couple things. One, you can go to astro.com. You can get a free profile. You can plug in your time, date, birth, and location. It needs to be exact, and you will be able to pull up a chart similar to the one that you see on the screen right now. If that is too much for you, I highly recommend, especially if you are an Astro babe and you're just kind of getting into this kind of stuff, it might be worthy hiring an astrologer or talking to somebody who can give you some pointers and some insight about your natal chart. Because the beauty of astrology is it gives you the opportunity to plan ahead. It helps you understand when the best time it is to launch a business, or when it's best to initiate a relationship, or focus on your finances, or really prioritize health. So the astrology really gives you the power to utilize these predictions and these kind of waves of things that are coming before it comes, so you're better prepared, right? All right, so what else is going to be happening? Plans are going to be made this month. This is happening because of the interaction that we see between Aries and Gemini. So if Aries is all self-willpower, motivation, very busy, Gemini is about communication. Gemini is information, conversations, text messages. It also deals a lot with short distance travel, writing, contracts. So when we see these two move into these harmonizing angles, which we call sextiles, they work together, they fuel each other, and it requires us to put something into action and actually get moving, so that way we can really utilize all of the benefits of the planets in both of these signs. So what's cool is, like, you're going to get even a little bit more of this when planets go into Gemini at the end of May, going into June. They will still make positive aspects to Chiron and Aries. So there's like a storyline that's birthing right now, just coming off the heels of this full moon. And really what's happening is we're really waking up to the fact that in order to better relate to other people, we have to know ourselves, we have to work on ourselves, we have to heal ourselves. So that's where we're at right now. Plans are being made, and we learn how to integrate this air and fire energy. And I feel like it's good that they're supporting each other, because Aries can be a little chaotic and all over the place if it's not kind of tethered with something else. Same thing goes for Gemini energy. Mars in Gemini is very busy. It can be kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? It can be kind of scattered, right? It's kind of like multitasking, going back and forth, not really knowing exactly where to focus and harness those energies. So we're going to focus on calibrating these energies and moving away from like this scattered kind of frenzy that we have with Mars and Gemini. Pluto will also be going retrograde later this month. Let me get the date on that. I did not write that down. I've got it down here somewhere. Pluto retrograde. Oh my goodness, where is it? Okay, give me a second. I'll find it. But Pluto is going to go retrograde, and, you know, are we going to feel that as intensely? Not necessarily. When Pluto goes retrograde, just like any other outer planets, you know, the further out the planet is, like Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, we don't feel those retrogrades immediately or as intensely as if it were happening with like a Mercury or a Mars retrograde, because it's an outer planet. So it's going to go retrograde and it's going to focus on slowly breaking down something in your life that is not sustainable or is not solid or is not abundant, or perhaps it's just not going to be reliable, right? Because Pluto will be going retrograde at 26 degrees. 26 degrees works out to a Taurus degree. So what this means is like if the foundation of your house isn't going to work, you're going to find out. If the foundation of your career is crumbling and it's not worth moving forward with, you're going to feel it. Same with relationships, same with power struggles, especially because Capricorn rules over time and our relationship to things that are long lasting. So many people are going to kind of start to see this slow breakdown of things that we have settled for a very long time that are just not working anymore. Now, on the major scale out in the world, I think this is going to manifest as a lot of like government change and like really seeing where certain government motives are breaking down, where certain big, high powerful companies, corporate companies may go bust. We might see some things that with the banking system, especially towards the end of the month, gets a little wonky. So what I think Pluto does when he's going retrograde is he does really good work, because he helps us kind of dig and go through all of the stuff that we don't want to acknowledge, all of the things that we're keeping hiding in our closet. And certainly at the end of the month, when the Scorpio full moon arrives, all the skeletons come out the closet. That is going to be a wild one. I feel like, for me, what makes me a little anxious is definitely the full moon in Scorpio. And that's coming from a Scorpio, so that says a lot. You don't need me to tell you this. The last several years where we've had a full moon, whenever it kind of lines up at the end of April, beginning of May in Scorpio, we always see a mix of Uranus energy, because Uranus has been in Taurus for the last several years. So you can reflect on some of the stuff that has happened over the last few springs, and you'll see like a pattern that's going to be kind of repeating itself. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Self-awareness and honoring personal integrity is like a big theme that kept coming up for me the more that I kept looking at the astrology and the transits, and also the more that I just kept sitting in meditation and looking at some of the degrees that kept coming up for me. I feel like the more that we're practicing and really working with that sun in Aries, the more we're able to be aware of our own personal goals and what we need for personal freedom and to be authentic. So it's going to help us honor our personal integrity, ensure that we move forward and we're really putting our money where our mouth is. That's what I like about the Aries kind of linking up with Gemini. It's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So especially around the new moon on the 11th, it can be a wonderful time to do what Aries energy does best. Does anybody here have any personal planets in Aries? My moon's in Aries, and one thing I've noticed about myself is I always have a to-do list. So there is a never-ending to-do list. There is something that is always on that list. And for me, it helps me hold myself accountable for making sure that I get that stuff done. So that can be a really kind of interesting way to kind of ritualize what you're committing to, especially when it comes to yourself. But like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about how it's going to affect all of the signs a little bit later on. Neptune squares. Well, they are coming. We are going to see a couple of planets square off and make aspects. It's been happening the last couple of days, actually. We've had Mercury in Pisces, which feels like a retrograde, making squares to the nodes. And, we're going to see just a couple more squares between Mars in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces. I'll talk about how that's going to play out, because I feel like I have a little bit more of like a optimistic view of how it can go. But certainly whenever we're dealing with Mars, which is like putting the pedal to the metal, and Neptune, which is like, wait, where are we? There can be some confusing or some conflicting energies. The positive side of the Mars-Neptune square is where we realize that we're moving quickly through something, but we're actually not tapped into what the spiritual side of our lives are trying to tell us, what Neptune is trying to show us, where we may be not paying attention to the symbolism in the day-to-day life, or not retaining that dream, or really heeding the warnings or the messages that are coming from our intuition. On a physical level, the Mars square Neptune can be a lot of people going back and forth and not hearing each other because it's mutable signs, jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, perhaps a little bit of gossip and some scandal that's going on behind the scenes. So those of you guys who like some tea, there you go, I'm serving it up. And then finally we move into, it's going to be kind of reminiscent in some weird way of what we dealt with last year with all of those horrific Saturn squares, all the cardinal squares. Remember when we had like the Mars retrograde squared off in Aries with Pluto in Capricorn several times? And, you know, all last year, it was just so intense for cardinal energy, really the last 3 years, because, you know, Pluto moves very slowly, but Saturn and Jupiter was in the mix. So anybody who had cardinal placements the last couple of years saw this intense pressure, which really was an initiation to get moving on some area of your life. So we're going to see a little bit of that, not just this month, but we'll see it next month when Mars moves into Cancer as well and creates a square. But really what I'm looking at is when all of the personal planets like the Sun and Venus and eventually Mercury will come into squares with Pluto in Capricorn, good old Pluto. That's where you want to watch out for the traps, kids, and we'll go and I'll discuss a little bit more about that. But that's the overall feel for what's going on for the month. I got to tell you, you know, for the most part, I'm quite excited to see what happens. Let's kind of go transit by transit, and I want to talk to you guys about what I am seeing. So give me 1 second. Let me pull out my handy dandy calendar. All right. Starting with today, April 1st. So today we have Venus in Aries. So putting emphasis, focusing on self-love, beauty, our primal nature when it comes to love and finances and money. And Venus is making a cute little sextile, or has been making a sextile all day, to the North Node. So going back to that sextile, right? That nice angle that you form when you skip a sign. When those come together and they work together consciously, we're more aware of the direction that we're going in, especially when the North Node is involved. So the North Node in Gemini, what we're communicating, what we're writing, what we're speaking, where we're going, where we're traveling, all of these things. Right now, Venus is saying, hey, giving you some insight, giving you a sneak peek of actually what's going to happen later on in the months ahead. Not too far away from now. It's actually, I think, going to be around mid-May that Venus will come through these degrees in Gemini, and we will start to see a bigger piece of the puzzle. What's kind of cool also that's been happening the last couple of days, I don't know if you guys have heard about like the Venus-Sun cazimi or the Venus combust that's been happening. This is when a planet moves very closely with the Sun and it burns out, right? Because the Sun is like the person who's like, get out of the way. This is my show. This isn't about you. This is about me. It doesn't allow Venus to do her thing. And Venus in Aries is a very, very significant, very signature, you can't miss somebody who has Venus in Aries type of feeling. They go after what they want. They practice a lot of self-love. They are very eager to please. They are very eager to do a lot of other Venusian things. So right now I feel like in a way, it's not possible for Venus to really show off what she's working on. Like there's something being concealed right now and it's being cloaked, and it's being cloaked for good reason. A lot of the magic that's going on with the Sun-Venus stuff and even the Venus sextile, the North Node, is going on beneath the surface. Like we don't see it. Like it's happening, but we don't see it. And part of it is because I think it's kind of alchemizing and working within us. So that's kind of cool. We're not going to see a lot of this quite yet. Hi guys, I see you all in the chat. But the North Node is where we are going. So pay attention to the conversations you're having, what you're putting work into, what pleasure you're enjoying, what you're loving right now, and what you're focusing on, because this is going to only continue to build really until next month. So then we come up on April the 2nd. This is going to be Mercury in Pisces sextile Pluto. So I love this energy. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But you have to look for it, right? Because Pluto is very sneaky. So Pluto in Capricorn, especially Pluto sitting and chilling at the degree that he is chilling at 26 degrees, power, right? Abundance, sensuality, what we value, what tastes good, smells good, what's ultimately going to give us the power to move forward. Really pay attention tomorrow for those little subtle messages that you get. Pluto is death, it's transformation. Pluto is about leveling up and being able to evolve on a soul level. So when Pluto is harmonizing with Mercury, who, by the way, is one of the gods who has the ability to go in all of the different realms, he can go to hell, he can go to heaven, he can come back to the mortal realm and deliver us these messages. Tomorrow is a cool day. Break out your tarot cards, break out your astrology, break out your crystal balls, do your witchy things, pull out the Ouija board if that's what you're into, work with your pendulum. Pay attention to the really significant kind of darker energy currents that come through. Can be an awesome day for spirit communication, especially if you're into mediumship, or if you're into being able to connect with your ancestors, or maybe you want to make a little bit time tomorrow to sit and burn some incense and some tobacco and other things that the dead like. Do something for them, you know, especially Mercury in Pisces. Like, I feel like that's sit and meditate, burn some incense, burn some tobacco, maybe pour a big glass of water for them, or do something to be able to really work with those earth and water vibes so you can receive the messages that you're hoping to receive. It can also be a cool day to do some like water magic, or do anything that has to do with water divination, or maybe work with like black mirrors. I don't know if you guys are into that. I like those. I think they're kind of spooky. This is where the channel takes a really fucking weird kind of like witchy turn. But, you know, that's my take on it. It can be a great day to get some messages. So then we move to April the 3rd. And on this day, we're going to see the sun sextile the North Node. So it's kind of a repetition of what's going on right now. So the sun being that consciousness. So when the sun sextiles the North Node, we get even more of a snippet of where we're going. That may be more so the enlightenment. So it's almost like today we focus on what we want, what we value, what we want to love, what we want to see manifest. Tomorrow we look for those cosmic messages, or we look for those numbers to see if it's actually coming, and we look for responses from the universe. And then on the 3rd, it's like, oh, bing, a light bulb goes off. And there can be great ideas. There can be physical manifestations that actually show up that day. The sun sextile, I think the North Node is almost like you're given a VIP access pass, and you get to go behind the scenes and hang out at the show before the show even goes on, which will be happening when the sun and all the other planets touch with the North Node next month. So, you know, if this were me, I would really pay attention the next couple of days, because I feel like there's going to be some really cool stuff that starts to manifest. And, you know, it always starts with yourself when it's Aries. It's always yourself, and it's an initiatory energy. So the next 72 hours, things get moving that really point you in the direction of where you're meant to be going. So then we move to April 4th. And on April 4th, Mercury will enter Aries. Yay! So no more of this kind of like drowning in the swimming pool, not hearing things clearly energy. Be mindful that whenever a planet enters into 0 degrees of a cardinal sign, especially the very first degree of the zodiac, it packs a punch. So it's like when you are driving, slow down. When you are texting, getting angry, be mindful of your words. Be mindful of contracts and negotiations and rushing through things. It's like I almost say give it a day or two to see how this energy kind of shakes out. Certainly great for getting new ideas up and running and for committing to writing something or setting something in your calendar for setting up a event or setting up a meeting. Everybody is just going to be really excited, I think, to communicate. So I like that energy. I think it's going to be fun. I'm waiting until then. Mercury starts sextiling the North Node, which we'll see pretty soon. But if you have any personal planets in the first couple degrees of Aries, pay extra attention, because I think it's just going to have you more receptive. It's going to have you more communicative. And it's going to be a good time. Gotta love all this fire. It's like pulling us out of the Pisces swamp that we have been in. So that will be a welcomed change. All right, so then that takes us to April 6th. On April 6th, Venus in Aries makes a sextile to Mars in Gemini. So I always make this joke when I talk about sextiles, because no, the planets are not having sex, right? But when Venus and Mars are in a sextile, they might be talking about having sex or having passionate communication, especially when, you know, you're seeing it between Venus and Mars, right? So it's like you're maybe not doing it, but you're making plans about it, or you're talking about it, or you're looking for it. So Venus in Aries, we've talked about this a little bit. You know, this is kind of like a more fierce, fiery, sexual, primal energy. And then Mars in Gemini is about like duality. So it's like, do I want this or do I want that? Or am I going here? Am I going there? So I could definitely see just like an uptick in people wanting to talk about their values, their relationships, their money. Especially, you know, Mars and Gemini makes me feel like a lot of people are going to be talking about it online. A lot of people are going to be looking for love maybe online, especially because we see Saturn in harmonious aspects to Gemini. And I feel like that's when you really start walking the walk and talking the talk. You know, Venus is just moving into, Venus has been in Aries for some time, but she's had some time to work away from the sun, from Chiron, and now coming to kind of rub up on Mars. And so now we kind of start things moving and shaking, right? Just reading a little bit about what you guys are saying in the chat. Sexting, yeah, sexting. Yep, lots of sexting. Okay, cool. So it sounds like this is resonating with some of you guys. Awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next date, and that is going to be April 9th. So on April 9th, we see Mars in Gemini square Neptune. So this is definitely, I see both sides of the coin here. So let's go with the positive first. So Mars square Neptune, Mars is our drive, our direction, our passion, our motivation, and Neptune is the more spiritual connection. It is what we see in a dream, what we feel intuitively. It's how we connect to source. So in a way, this day, it's like you're going to see whether or not your actions or what you're physically doing is actually lining up with the whole spiritual process and the spiritual plan, which in my opinion may really take until next year, when we see Jupiter completely ingress fully into Pisces and come up and snuggle up with Neptune. A lot of things will make sense next year. Like a lot of the things that happened this year as a result of the squares or the retrogrades or the eclipses won't really shake out until the first couple of months of 2022. And then when when Jupiter and Neptune come together in Pisces, what we're going to see is like wish fulfillment, and wishes that supersede our wildest dreams. Okay, so be mindful of that things may not always make sense, and especially in June of this year, I've talked about it a little bit, how it kind of gets a little topsy-turvy, and we're going to see that there's going to be a second path that opens up for a lot of people. For right now, all you need to worry about is sticking to your guns, Aries, and sticking to the plan, what you're committing to. Don't get lost with the Mars-Neptune square of other people's shit, other people's drama, other people's mental, emotional, spiritual crises. Don't get trapped up in other people's illusions. Don't get trapped up in other people's sob stories. I'm all about wanting to help people and being sympathetic and understanding. But the reality is that what we're going to see with this square is where Neptune collectively, people can get too kind of mixed up in I I think what's being projected out into the world, right? So when we see Aries, I think of kind of like somebody who is totally willing and wholeheartedly capable of just going off on their own adventure and taking care of themselves and being brave. When I see energies like this in Pisces, this can be like, you know, martyrism and victim mentality and addiction and illusions. And we don't want to get caught up in that. We want to focus on our plan. So this is what I love about astrology. What's happening, especially like right now, everything's falling into divine order to really bring the attention back to ourselves. So that way, as long as we're working on our goals and our drive and our self-love, everything else will reroute itself and it will magically come together and it will work itself out, because that's what the astrology does. Ultimately, the astrology is here to help us supersede our astrological placements and evolve on a soul level. So you will be rewarded, okay? Big time, especially June and July, if you're doing this work now. If you're not, things might get a little funky and you might have to kind of reroute in June. And you may still be running the risk of not getting as much out of next year as what you truly want. So keep that in mind. It's like, here's my breadcrumbs that I'm laying out for you guys. Like, you're going to get a little support from the universe in June. You're going to get a little bit more next year. And it'll all make sense as to why you had to go through these personal trials and these tests. Because it's like we're trying to see if everybody's going to level up on their own so we can all evolve together. Like, now it's become a very personal thing. All right, so back to my squares. Where I'm not so thrilled about these squares between Mars and Neptune is it can manifest as, you know, people who are having accidents, especially with vehicles, or just carelessness, or not being grounded, or not being attuned to your body. This is not a time to be under the influence and driving a car. You shouldn't be doing it anyway, but you really shouldn't be doing it during this time. When we see squares and mutable signs, at times we see extreme weather, or we see like really weird weather patterns, or we see excessive flooding or excessive heat sometimes, or we see all kinds of accidents that can actually come from water, whether that's slipping on an ice cube in the kitchen because you didn't pick it up because you were too stoned to pick it up, or this is like you not fixing something in your house that deals with water, or a pipe, knowing that, you know, oh, okay, the water pressure is a little high and the heat's a little high, but it'll be fine. And then the pipe bursts. So weird things like that can happen. Pay especially close attention if you do have any personal planets that are around that 20 to like 22 or 23 degrees of mutable signs, mutable. And that's where I think these people are going to have a little bit more of a challenging time, because it's going to be like, wait a second, am I hearing this correctly? Am I seeing this right? And it's just a time to not jump to conclusions and be mindful that Mars in Gemini loves to gossip. It loves to kind of stir the pot, and Neptune and the moon that day doing their thing. I really feel like the moon adding to that is just going to bring so much more Neptunian delusion that I would say just be careful, kids. Be careful. Yeah, don't jump to conclusions. I think a lot of people are going to get like really passive aggressive, and they're going to make assumptions, and there's going to be drama because one person's like drinking and the other person's not listening. You know, stuff like that can happen. And if you are traveling, you know, check the weather report, be mindful of where you're going. Don't just assume everything's going to be fine. And take time to slow down, meditate when the moon is in Pisces, so you can be so much more aware and in tune to these spiritual messages that are coming through that you might hear in the wind, or you might see in a dream, or it might just come to you suddenly and you realize like, whoa, I'm not walking the walk and talking the talk. The things that I'm doing are not actually in alignment with what I want. And like, this is weird. And why am I manifesting these things? So that way we're falling away from victim mentality and we're stepping into our own personal power. That's what we want to do. All right. So then we move to April the 10th. And on April 10th, we got a couple things going on. Mercury in Aries is now sextiling Saturn. So I feel like Mercury starts getting strong right around this time, the 9th, the 10th. And when Mercury is in Aries, which is like go, 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 and when it's making that sextile to Saturn, who's like, hold up there, bud, you know, really make sure you know what you're signing. Really make sure that If you're agreeing to this, you can follow through. And Aries is very much the me, the I am, and then Saturn in Aquarius is everybody. So what's interesting is like this can be an awesome day for relationship building, for negotiating, for team building. It can be an awesome day to like really sit down and like work with a group and have a meeting or have a team meeting, or if you're needing to communicate and talk to and work with people who you network with, or even some of your friends, because they're working together and they're able to kind of sort something out and really get some or gain some kind of clarity, but also a lot of stability. It's building that foundation, right? So it's saying, you know, the things that you're signing up for around the 10th, 11th, 12th of April is very important, because it's going to play a bigger role in some of the things that are going to come for the rest of this year. All right. So that same day, we also see Venus in Aries sextile Jupiter. Oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for. So Venus in Aries, doing her thing, getting all nasty and being really direct about what she wants. And when I say nasty, I don't mean like nasty. I mean like feisty, kind of sexy, kind of passionate, really direct. And things move very quickly when you see sextiles between these two signs. And then Jupiter just expands, right? It brings everything to the forefront. And what it does is it puts a magnifying glass on whatever it's touching. So similar to the energy the day before of the Mercury sextile Saturn, where they work together to be able to build long-term goals, the next day people get really excited and they're like, I love this. This is amazing. This is so good. Like, you know, we have such a great flow. We're working together so well, or I'm in love with you. Like, let's make these commitments. Like, let's travel. Let's do that. So big acts of love and lessons and knowledge comes with this aspect between these two planets. And I feel like it's like the more that you're putting emphasis on your passion and your drive around this time on the 10th, the more that it opens up to Jupiter and shows you that you're actually loving more than just yourself. You're able to love people, and it's not just about a romantic love, it's friendships, it's the environment, it's working with groups. So it's not limited to just a romantic love. These signs aren't the most kind of like interpersonal in a sense. Like when you think of, you know, Aries and Aquarius, it's me and then everybody. So it can be fun that Saturday for social distancing safe parties. It can be fun to go and maybe get out of town briefly, or go and spend some time with friends and have a good time. It can be great for just socializing in general. I really love that energy. And then that same day, because Venus is going to show up and make some other aspects between Jupiter and some other planets with Mercury, it's like everybody's in the bunch. Everybody's in the bunch here. Venus sextile Jupiter, Mercury sextile the North Node. So there's some kind of conversation, information that day, once again, about the future destiny. So like I said, guys, get your VIP backstage pass, pay attention, check in, because these days, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, there is some really important conversations and even projects, creative projects, relationship seeds, things that are beginning that are going to make so much more sense in about a month's time. Mercury sextile the North Node is just talking about where we're going. Literally on a trip. It can even be putting a lot of emphasis also in contracts and communications and learning, communicating with other people, you know, sharing your ideas with other people. So that way you have a better kind of clearer picture. And I think it's really going to encourage a lot of people to see two sides of the coin with that duality of the North Node in Gemini. Lots of facts showing up, I think. This leads me to then the new moon that we're going to have in Aries. So this moon that we're going to have in Aries shows up on April 11th, 2021 at 22 degrees of Aries. And that'll be at 7:31 Pacific time, 10:31 Eastern time. Now, like I said, guys, remember, I'm going to come back and I will do a video going really deep into it. And I'll talk about how it's going to affect all of the signs. But for right now, here's what you need to know. when we have a new moon in Aries, this is about coming back to yourself, okay? Focusing and setting intentions for yourself. So on that day, or even the day after, is a very potent time to put all of your energy into thinking about where you are going. Granted, yes, you want to know which house it's going to be in, because for some people, it may not be just so much yourself, but how you relate to different aspects of your life. On this moon, it's going to be coming in at 22 degrees. That is a Capricorn degree. Yes, it's Aries, but it's a Capricorn degree. So it's work, right? It's commitment. It's long-term goals, long-term planning. And what I love about this is that there's all kinds of sextiles from the node. There's all kinds of trines and things that are also still happening with Saturn. All of that Aries energy, we didn't even get into it, but it plays very nicely with the south node that we have in Sagittarius. So there is this good, yummy karmic energy that comes in from the Sag that builds well with the Aries, and it allows us to utilize all of the knowledge that we have already worked through, but it also sextiles the north node. So this reoccurring pattern of what we're doing on a personal level and how it affects the collective, and it encourages people to work together. So I love it. I'm seeing some people, Lynn, I love it. Your moon is in Aries. Okay, cool. Aries moon, happy out. Aries rising 22. So one thing that I'll tell you guys that you really want to pay attention to is if you have personal planets at that degree, it is going to pack a punch. It is a good time if you are an Aries moon, Aries rising, Aries sun around these degrees to put something in motion and set your intentions. My moon's in Aries, it is at 22 degrees. So I am quite excited to see how that one plays out, because I know that the astrology, the first 2 weeks of the month is like, for me, but I'm showing up, I'm here, guys. All right, so let's move on to the next that I have. So yeah, so that was the 12th. The day after, things get a little intense. So on this day, on April 12th, we see Venus in Aries square off with Pluto in Capricorn. Remember what I told you guys, all right? So whenever we're dealing with the cardinal squares, it's an initiation, and squares move us to act and to reevaluate. Pluto is power struggles, the need for transformation. Venus is emotions, it's love, it's how we relate to other people, it's pleasure, it's our preferences. So when we see these square off, it's almost like you're going to spend the first 10 or 11 days of the month really getting into alignment with what you want, what you need, what works best for you. And you're going to put so much emphasis on that, that just after you set your intentions on the new moon, guess what's going to happen? Pluto's going to show up and it's going to square. And actually, technically, it's Venus squaring Pluto. And it's going to be just this reevaluation of, okay, well, this is what's been going on for some time. Pluto's been in Capricorn forever. And it just recently got to that 26 degrees. So when you see them square off, it's like, hey, are the values actually working out? Like, are those values actually lining up? And are there going to be long-standing, reoccurring situations in your life that are going to test your new sense of values? That's the question. And when I think of Pluto in Capricorn, it's going to be like, you show up to work and tell your boss, hey, I've been, totally kicking ass and I've been working really hard and, I've been encouraging all of the group and we've been working together. Like, how about that raise? And Pluto might say, well, I don't know, you haven't done this, this, and this. And it can kind of take the wind out of your sails a little bit with that square to Venus, even though it's been building for the first 10 days of the month, really helping you focus on what you love and what you value. And then Pluto shows up and says, because Pluto is very fear-based, I'm not going to let you do this, or it's not good enough, or this or that, or, do you really want that? So watch out for those squares from Venus and Pluto, because they feel like what's going to come up is just the universe checking you, really asking you, how much do you really believe in what you're valuing? Do you really love it? Do you really need that? And where you really want to use fear as the motivation to just completely override that and supersede some of those power struggles and break them down. Trust me on this when I tell you, you guys want to break those down. because later in the future, kind of like I think it's going to be May or June, when Mars in Cancer comes into an opposition with Pluto, you're going to get tested again. So just a word to the wise, do not allow things to come in, scare you, threaten you, or make you feel like you are not being valued. Stick to your guns. All right, so then we have on the same day, actually, the Sun in Aries will also make a sextile to Mars. That is action. That is motivation. The Sun is our personal ego. Mars is our passion. It's our drive. I could definitely see some romantic squabbles on the 12th. I could definitely see people having to stand up for themselves on the 12th. I could definitely see really, intense conversations that need to happen. And it's not about being aggressive, and it's not even about laying down the law. It's just sticking to those boundaries and those lines in the sand that you drew and basically said, this is my bottom line. These are my non-negotiables. And by standing by that and not getting stuck up in the squares, the Sun sextile Mars gives you that like charismatic, energetic capability of being able to be like, this is how I'm showing up. This is what I need. So we can kind of offset the confrontational energy of the Venus square Pluto if you're communicating from a heart space, right? Don't let the ego get involved, kids. Trust me, this is not one that you want to tango with. All right. So then we move to April 13th, and on April 13th, the sun, that was April 13th. The Sun was sextiling Mars. So April 14th, now we have Venus enters Taurus. Ugh. So I am looking forward to this. I think it's going to be good. Not that I don't love Venus in Aries, but I think that, Venus rules Taurus. It does really well there. It's definitely going to ground out a lot of this air and fire energy. It's going to be nice all the way up until the time that it gets closer to Uranus. So enjoy it while you have it. This is a beautiful time to put more focus and emphasis on Taurus stuff. So what smells good, what feels good, what tastes good. A lot of people will make shifts and changes to how they're eating, I think, or what they're eating. I also feel like we're going to see relationships settle a little bit once it moves into Taurus, because things start to feel more kind of grounded out, right? Because Taurus is really the center of spring. That's when we're deepest in that season, and we're seeing that we have the most fertile, abundant energy, and it just holds it all together like glue. Great time also for like flowers and changing of your perfumes or your cosmetics and things like that. And if you have any personal planets in Taurus, especially the first couple of degrees, it can be a really great time for just paying attention to your beauty routine and your aesthetics and how you look, especially if you're a Taurus rising or maybe a Taurus sun. It's going to bring a lot of Venus energy into your life. Definitely consider putting some flowers out for yourself on an altar, or maybe perhaps planting some seeds and sending some intentions for the future of your garden. All right, and on the 15th, we have a lot going on actually between like the 15th and the 19th. So these are days to really pay attention to. So on the 15th, we're going to have the Sun sextile Jupiter. So going back to that sextile, it's an easy energy where you can kind of flow into each other. The Sun sextile, I think, is going to give us an opportunity to kind of see all of the goodies that Jupiter has to offer us, especially because Jupiter is getting into its later degrees in Aquarius. That's still team building, that's still action, that's still motivation. It requires a lot of working with other people. That, I think, is one of the more positive energies outside of maybe the Mars trine Jupiter. So Mars and Gemini will trine Jupiter too. So you see this energy, like this reoccurring, the sextiles and the trines. Trines just happen. Sextiles, you have to put in work. So with the Sun sextile Jupiter, we see an opportunity to learn a lot from other people, and we can teach other people, or we can travel to other people, or we can grow with other people. This is the one I'm not crazy about, and this will be the Sun square Pluto. So Sun in Aries square Pluto in Capricorn is just another reoccurrence, kind of similar to that Venus square Pluto, where we get a check by Pluto to see where our egos are or are not in check, right? If they're not in alignment. Sun square Pluto can also represent just challenges relating to whether or not we are in alignment with what's ultimately good for us, if we're letting other people have power over us, if we're letting other people dominate us or control us. So you definitely see ego flare-ups when you see the Sun square Pluto. It may be a reoccurrence of whatever was happening for the other squares that you experienced from Pluto earlier in the month. Mars in Gemini will trine Jupiter, so action, motivation, wish fulfillment, communication, travel. So talk your way through. The air is really going to help you. So it's just like, instead of being confrontational, it's just communicating and getting the point across. Mercury in Aries sextile Jupiter. And we're also going to see, let's see here, on the 16th. The Mercury is still kind of happening. We have Mercury in Aries sextile Jupiter, Mercury in Aries sextile Mars and Gemini, Mercury in Aries square Pluto, Sun conjunct Mercury on the 17th. That's a big one. So let me go in order here because this is a lot. So Mercury sextile Jupiter is about communicating, expressing your ideas and getting them out there and receiving positive reinforcement from other people. This can be friends, this can be groups, organizations, or even sharing your ideas online. Teaching maybe even because of that Jupiter. So teaching through personal experience. You see a lot of that this month. Mercury sextile Mars, the motivation to get things moving, communicating, making plans, traveling, and wanting to initiate contracts or negotiations. Mercury square Pluto can be a little bit of like an obsessive energy, so it's good for getting a lot of work done. It's not good for trying to strong arm somebody and trying to force somebody into agreeing to something, and you want to watch out for those mental mind games. There's a lot of Pluto tricks this month. And then Sun conjunct Mercury, I like that. I think that that's possibly the saving grace here, that and the trines. But Sun conjunct Mercury is just this enlightenment, this idea, this aha moment. It's realizing something, and it's very significant. So, in order, it's like things seem like they're going to kind of go well early in the day. They get a little intense, and you have a hurdle to cross with Sun square Pluto, and then you talk it out a little bit later in the day, and then you have this enlightenment at the end of the day, and it's like, oh, now I realize, well, that happened. Like, this is just another part of the test. This is just another wave of me needing to really stick to my guns. So those are a lot of squares, guys, especially if you guys are Astro babies. Thank you for hanging in there. But you know what? One of the best ways to learn astrology is to listen to astrology. It is such a beautiful language, but you can really get lost in all of it. So the more that you listen to it, the more that you're going to understand. All right, so now we go to April 19th. This is where we get into Taurus energy. So on the 19th, the Sun in Taurus will move with Mercury. So we're continuing off of like this whole Aries energy. And then when it shifts into Taurus, y'all are going to feel it. Because this is where we really start honing in and like really focusing on something that's really important. And this is where the energy of the astrology of the month really starts to change. So pay attention. Mercury enters Taurus on the 19th. Sun enters Taurus on the 19th. Then on the 23rd, and I guess I should say, if you are a Taurus, you're coming into your birthday season. This can be a good time to focus and put emphasis on your security, your money, your finances, long-term stuff that relates to your things. It can be a really great time to also start talking about what you value and what it is that you need for security. Where things get a little hairy is definitely going to be when Venus conjuncts Uranus on the 23rd. This is where I want you guys to pay attention, because Uranus is like this punk kid that has a ticking time bomb and just throws it into a situation, right? So this is where the Uranian energy really begins to build. It will be from this day forward. Why? Well, Venus, ruler of Taurus, ruler of the Sun, collides with Uranus. So the positive side of Uranus-Venus is unconventional, socially charming, has lots of fun, can be really innovative and artistic and fun. I don't know if any of you guys have Uranus conjunct Venus. Certainly the other side of it, and I see this a lot with like natal placements, and I get it because I have it too, is just a lot of breaks and patterns in relationships. It's like, boom, you're in a relationship, then you're out of one, then you're in a new one, and then you're friends, and then you're not friends. In Taurus, it doesn't deal so well having Uranus here. So while it loves Venus, it's not so crazy about Uranus. And so when these two link up and they come together, and they will first align around 10 degrees, it's about reevaluating and asking yourself, is this going to work in the long term? Is this really in alignment for the long term? And I really want you to pay attention to that. It can be great for having weird and strange, unconventional relationships. It can be great for overcoming hurdles, but this is an important period to watch because it's only going to build as the month goes on. So then we come to the 24th. And actually on the 23rd, I forgot to mention, Mars will enter Cancer. So I think that's partially why the 23rd is a little intense also, because we're going to have Mars at 29 degrees of Gemini. So that feels kind of rushed and impatient and lots of talking and communicating. And then it's just like, boom, on the 23rd, if you can't talk your way through it, if you don't see eye to eye, if your values don't align, if it doesn't feel like it's working financially or romantically or creatively, it's like some people will go bust at the end of the month. Leading up to the full moon in Scorpio. Lovely. So Mars enters Cancer on the 23rd, and Cancer, Mars, little debilitated there. Basically, I'm just expecting people to be a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more reminiscent, a little bit more emotional, maybe moody. So watch out for that. All right, and then on the 24th, we have Mercury conjunct Uranus. So enlightenment, like waking up, like opening up, like seeing something, like some sudden shocking information or insight. We're going to have Saturn trine the North Node. So, you know, stay with me here. Saturn in Aquarius, it's the original ruler of Aquarius. So for Saturn to be in Aquarius, there's all this weird Uranus stuff going on. There's a method to the madness. Whatever roller coaster loop you're being sent on is a part of the bigger plan. So try not to get freaked out. Because Saturn trines the North Node, it's basically saying, look, here's the deal. We have to create order sometimes through chaos. Sorry. And Saturn is saying, you know, a lot of other people are going through this too, and it's the collective energies, and it's a part of the plan, and it won't really make sense till June. So just know that Saturn is supporting whatever kind of crazy things are happening at the end of April. Venus that same day in Taurus will square Saturn, which is kind of weird because Venus square Saturn is like not a stop sign, but you know, you kind of have to brake, you hit a speed bump. Anytime a Saturn square comes up, it's like slow down. So be careful with investments, be careful with large purchases, be mindful of your finances. I'm imagining it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. I'm not going to speculate how it's going to affect everybody. I just know that when Venus and Uranus and the sun link up, there's lots of new technology that's born. There's lots of new opportunities in relationships, but oftentimes all the collective values are all over the place, so it can be harder to see financial stability, especially in the markets. I'm not going to say it's going to do anything, because the truth is that with this energy also, it could go totally bananas and we could see an insane period of time happening in the markets or economically. My view is that because of the squares between Saturn and also some of the squares and aspects with Uranus, it's showing us that while some things may be doing well, and here's an example, we've seen, you know, like this last year, you know, the markets can be absolutely insane and hitting all these new highs and doing all of this great stuff, and it's just booming. But in the midst of COVID and the pandemic, we've had thousands of people out of work, and some cities that are not really opening up, and some cities that are not really experiencing that innovation and that abundance. So it's almost like it's going to be topsy-turvy. Not everything is going to make sense, and it's just important to just pay attention and go along with the ride. So in Venus squares Saturn, you may not want to be rushing into things. Some of your values may not align with other people or other groups collectively. Mercury and Taurus will also square Saturn, so it's a limitation possibly of travel, electronics, ideas, sharing of information. And Mercury will be conjunct Venus. This is important. okay? Because the sun's in Taurus, it's ruled by Venus. Venus is conjunct Mercury. Mercury squaring with Saturn and some other stuff. It's just, in my opinion, this is a day to watch because it's like all hell could break loose on the 24th, the 25th, just coming into this full moon. And we definitely start to feel the effects of the full moon, typically 2 days prior, right? It's that buildup, especially when the moon goes, into the dark phase and everybody's kind of crabby and kind of cranky. So a lot is going to shake out probably as early as 48 hours prior to this full moon. If you have personal planets within, let's say 10, maybe to about 15 degrees of the fixed signs, pay attention. These are T-squares, my friends. That is what is showing up right now. Well, squares, but eventually you'll see it will become a T-square when some other planets come into Leo, and then that's the other leg of the race. But right now, when we see a square between Aquarius and Taurus, it's what we value, what we need for security, the money we have, the food we have, the security we have, banking, and then Aquarius is everybody else. So there's going to be something going on that we're going to see just total shifts economically, I think globally, right? We're going to see some places are just opening up and they're booming and they're doing well, and other places are not going to be. All right, so then this brings us to the 25th of April. And the 25th of April, we have Venus square Saturn still is going on. Mercury square Saturn is still going on. Mercury conjunct Venus is still going on. And then the 27th, which will be the full moon. Here's how I see this, guys. Whenever you're dealing with a full moon in Scorpio, things get intense. Skeletons come out the closet. Not much you can do about it. It's that need to really deal with the Taurus and the Scorpio axis, which is mine and yours, right? Or mine and ours, what I have and what we create, and finding that middle ground between the two. Scorpio is crisis. There's no way around it. At that time, Pluto is still making some of the funky angles that Pluto is making. Yes, he is still kind of in a sextile to Neptune, but that's wearing off. And yeah, there's just, I think the big thing that my face or my eyes kind of go to is that still we have Ceres in Aries, and I talked about that in a previous video. But Ceres squaring off with Pluto, I think, is definitely going to be some type of issue that might have to do with food or crops, or some crisis that relates to what we have available, right? It can bring up bits of depression for some people, and it can also bring up some darker moods. But this full moon is coming in at 7 degrees, I believe. Let me check this really quick. Yeah, 7 degrees of Scorpio. So, with Scorpio, we see, crisis. I mean, it's an ending. It's a death. It's a death and it's a rebirth. It's a need to actually hit reset. So the astrology was kind of paving the way for this and making this possible to kind of lead up into this point, right? And with all these squares between Taurus Taurus and Uranus, with Saturn, I see a lot of like unexpected change, swings, and Saturn is saying you got to work together. You got to find an equal cause. You got to work hard. You got to team build. So all of these energies in fixed signs are kind of challenging, Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius. These are all signs that don't really do so well when it comes to the change game. And at that time, the moon is making an opposition to the sun at a 7, which is partnerships, balance, harmony, how we relate to other people. But it's also making a slight opposition to Uranus, which is unconventional, unexpected. We didn't see it coming. And that's really what you want to prepare for. Any which way I cut it, I've looked at the astrology. Everybody is going to get this unexpected thing. How it affects you is really going to depend on how many planets you have within those degrees of the fixed signs, and if it's helping you or hindering you. For some people, it can be that moment where you just blast through a roadblock and you're like, you know what, that's done, I'm finished, I'm moving on. And the Uranian energy might work really well for you, especially if you have planets around 8 to maybe 12 degrees of an earth sign. If you've got some of those placements in Capricorn, that trine is going to help you. If you've got some of those placements in Virgo, that that trine is going to help you. It's going to give you unconventional, unexpected ways forward. Where you're going to get hit is if you have the squares and the fixed signs. So early degrees of Leo, early degrees of Scorpio, and early degrees of Aquarius, you're going to feel this the most. And in a way, you guys have already gotten a little taste of that this year. The difference now is with all the planets in Taurus, things physically manifest. We see those fluctuations in the bank account. We see the shifts with your health. We see the changes with the earth. This is energy that literally rocks and rattles and rolls. So we may also see some impending major shifts environmentally, whether that's an earthquake, or we see there's some huge glacier shifts, or maybe we see some things that happen with crops not doing so well. So pay attention to that. That may come up as well. So then on the 29th, actually, no, I'll touch on something that I did see just now. On the 27th, Mercury is conjunct Lilith, and Lilith has been kind of following through there for a little bit, but there is a Lilith conjunction, and Lilith is actually dealing with fear, and whether or not we are playing into the fear, if we are allowing whatever is going on in the world to instill fear, to freak us out, if we're going to let that run the show, that can be especially strong if you have personal planets in Lilith, because that conjunction is gnarly. And so what I want you to remember is, yes, we have all of these squares. Not much you can do. Squares get us moving. But all of this energy is kind of yummy for Pluto. And Pluto really wants to see us transform. Pluto says transmute or die. So what you will see as we move further into May is all of these planets start to move, especially Lilith. I think Lilith will keep going forward. Mercury, Venus, the Sun are all going to form trines to Pluto. So we will see long-lasting change and transformation that is going to be quite stable. So that's like the higher side of it. Don't let fear run the show. Don't let fear kind of creep in there. So then on the 30th, there we go. On the 30th, we have the Sun conjunct Uranus. So this is the when everything happens, okay? This is when we start to see the fireworks and the chaos and the kind of bombs that are thrown into our lives. Especially at a 10, it's about kind of knocking down long-standing things that maybe we've put too much time into, right? Or maybe it's not worth our time, or maybe it's something that is going to be a total shift that will affect you for a very long period of time. Any which way we cut it, change is coming, okay? And the nice thing that I do like about the 30th and even going into the first couple days of May is that the moon in Capricorn will ground all this energy out when the sun and the moon trine, and then the moon comes in the first couple days of May and it trines all these planets in Taurus. Collectively, everybody will go through this at the same time. All right? Oh my goodness, that was a lot. Thank you guys for going through me with this. Now I want to shift to the part of the video where I talk a little bit about how it's going to affect each and every one of the signs. Keep in mind, it's important that you know your rising sign and your sun sign. I always tell my clients, your rising sign is important. This is what astrologers write when we write horoscopes. We're writing horoscopes for the ascendant. Granted, the sun will apply to some extent, and as will the moon. But if you're like, hey, Candace, what's going to happen? Read your rising sign. Then you want to read your sun sign, because that's actually going to apply to you on a very personal kind of ego level, or a level that is going to relate to you in terms of your soul growth. The moon sign can apply as well on an emotional level, but stick with the sun and the rising sign first. All right, so know where those are. If you don't know where those are, book a reading with me. You can check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com, where I do readings that are a collection of me psychically looking at the chart, practicing evolutionary astrology, predictive astrology, and also working with tarot and what I see in terms of my clairvoyant visions. I also practice synastry and all kinds of stuff. You know, I can do all kinds of stuff. If you're looking for a date that you want to get married or open a business, we can do that. If you're wanting to look at your compatibility between yourself and another person, we can do that too. So head on over there or check out my other social media handles at Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. All right, so let's get into it, kids. I see so many people have stayed in the chat. You guys are so awesome. Let's start talking about how this is going to affect all of the signs. Ready? So those of you astro nerds, get your chart out in front of you. Take a look at what's going on, because I think that you really need to get a feel for what's happening visually this month to really understand the flow of things. So for Aries and Aries rising, okay, a lot of everything that I spoke about, really, that was you, baby. That was all you. So just as a recap, the first and the third house are working together for you this month. This is you, your body, your motivation, your actions, how you're coming into the world, and also your communication sector, your phone, your text messaging, your siblings, your car. So if there's anything that's third house stuff that you need to get done, put that energy in Aries to work and walk the walk and talk the talk, right? Communicate, journal, get all that stuff out there. Where I think you're going to have more challenges this month, Aries, is definitely going to be the friction between your second and your 11th house. So the second house is like loaded with Taurus. It can be really good for making changes in money and making shifts with finances. But where I think you're going to have some challenges is going to be those uncomfortable squares that are going to take place at the end of the month between Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius. Word to the wise, borrowing money or lending money with a friend might not be a good idea. You might be looking into new investments. You might be looking into new ways of making more money. Your values may be changing. Go and find a group or a network so you can learn more about making money or unconventional ways of making money. Talk to people about it. Maybe join a cause so you can kind of like learn a little bit more and you can network and you can share some of your own personal ideas with these people, and it's just going to be a beautiful flow. But the friction between the 11th house and the second house is your goals are changing. What you're hoping to achieve are changing. Maybe you're moving into a period of time where you're realizing, I'm not valuing all the things anymore. I want friendship. I want, to network. I want to feel like I can find my tribe. So your money preferences kind of change a little bit. So just be mindful of that. So for Taurus and Taurus rising, your 12th house and your second house are working together beautifully. So what does this mean? The 12th house is the hidden sector. It's what you really don't see, what's not happening, what's manifesting on a spiritual level, what you're meditating on, thinking about, focusing on, dreaming about, and it's all funneling into your second house. So this can really manifest more in a sense of like you putting a great deal of energy into, okay, the abundance is coming, the money is coming, meditating on that, really asking yourself what you're willing to let go of, not allowing money or finances or resources to worry you, and just know that everything starts on the astral, so you have to kind of think about it and manifest it before it shows up, because the third dimension is the last thing to change. So keep that in mind. You may also be spending more money on spiritual stuff, crystals, psychics, meditation softwares, all kinds of things that's really expanding your sense of values. So that can be good. But also you might do a little bit more of just what Taurus likes to do, which is just like eat and chill and put on your pajama pants and take a nap. Because whenever you're dealing with the second house and the 12th house, it's very much about kind of like unwinding and really experiencing just getting comfortable and pleasure. Taurus, where I think you're going to find the most friction is going to be between your first house and your 10th house. So this is going to be about what you want, what you need to activate, what you need to get moving with, and the overall bigger picture in terms of your career. I think this square is good for you because it gives you the opportunity to get all the lazy stuff out of your system early in the month, and then the second half of the month is so much motivation to create change. Watch your mouth when it comes to dealing with bosses and authority figures, because you could definitely get into a bit of a squabble with somebody who is a superior to you and tell somebody off and be like, you know what, I'm done, I'm going my own way. Taurus is a force to be reckoned with, okay? Especially this month. They are going to be very unconventional, very unexpected. They might have fits of rage. Be nice to your Tauruses. Give them some snacks. Give them a pet and a cuddle, because they are going to have a real issue with the struggle with authority and not being able to have personal freedom. Keep going, Taurus. You've got it. All right. For Gemini, the 11th and the first house are working together very beautifully for you. This is a nice interaction that you're having between yourself and your social groups. You are motivated to start groups, join groups, work with people, collaborate with friends, stay busy. This is what you really like to do. So what's cool is that I think that you have the opportunity to share your ideas with lots of people, especially if you're someone who's putting a great deal of focus or emphasis on working for yourself or maybe doing some kind of work online. The friction this month is going to come between your 12th house and your 9th house. And I don't mind this friction. I think it's okay. I think the 9th house has to do with what we learn and our higher values and our morals, and the 12th house can be undoing. So where Gemini is going to have a bit of a challenge is definitely dealing with foreigners perhaps, or maybe dealing with people behind the scenes, or maybe there's like a total shift that's going on in your belief system, but you're trying to kind of keep it behind the scenes and under wraps and you don't want people to know. A lot of your spiritual work can be done best actually behind closed doors and in hidden places. Be mindful that you also, if you're planning travel or if you're getting ready to travel, Gemini energy might have a little bit of a harder time and it might throw you for a bit of a loop. So just be mindful of that. For Cancer, your 10th and 12th house are working together beautifully. So the 10th house for you is your career. It's what you're doing out in the world and what you're focusing and putting energy into. The sun is there. It's giving you lots of star power, lots of motivation. And then the planets that are supporting you in Gemini are in the 12th house. So it looks to me like you're working on something, but you're not ready to like really put it out there yet. And you're definitely one of the signs that I would say would benefit from releasing any of this stuff closer to either when Mars comes into your personal sign, or perhaps after the new moon that's going to happen in Aries this month. But yeah, just a lot of working behind the scenes, getting things going. You might be the person who's the idea guy or actually building something, and then not a lot of people know that you're building something else on the side. And so there's some kind of merger between the 12th house and the 10th house where some of your best work is yet to come. I could also see that you've been working a lot and there is a need for you to relax a little bit and take a step back and really focus on healing if you are going through something health-wise. The friction is between your 11th and your 8th house. So to me, it seems like there's a huge transformation for you, Cancer, that relates specifically to your friendships. And some friendships are changing and you might be feeling a little emotional if like friends aren't showing up for you, or feeling like there needs to be a shift going on and maybe a death or a rebirth of an actual friendship. So be mindful of that. It's uncomfortable. You could have some friends that haven't been checking in, and maybe talking to them will really help because you can find out and not really take personally their absence, and you can find out that maybe they've been going through something. So there's an opportunity to heal there. For Leo, your 9th and your 11th house are working together beautifully. So matters of higher education, travel, law, you may be traveling with friends. You may be celebrating that you're completing a program. You might be finding out that somebody is graduating. This is super fun energy. You do well with all this air and fire. You're going to have a blast. I think what's really cool is you can be making future plans for travel as well. Where there's friction is between your 10th and your 7th house. So it's definitely power struggles in relationships and finding it difficult to find that balance between a romantic partner and also a business, or what you're doing for work. And you're kind of getting pulled in different directions. There's like all this opportunity to go and travel and have fun and be with your friends. And, you want to focus on work, but maybe people are trying to get your attention. Saturn's in your 7th house saying, what about me? So my advice is don't get sucked up in the drama. What Saturn has to offer you with Jupiter this year is an opportunity to have new relationships and learn that you don't have to run the show, that it's not always about you. I know that that's kind of a surprise for most Leo suns or Leo risings. What you're learning is that when you start to really set your life up in a way where you have your work and you have your friends and you have your you time and then you have your relationship time, everything can work. And when things aren't out of balance, or when you're over caretaking to one of those and kind of neglecting something else, there's friction. So just pay attention to that and realize that, you know, it can't be all relationship or work. There is some yummy energy and seeing the bigger picture and opportunity to spend time with friends and have a better life balance. For Virgo, your 8th and your 10th house are working together beautifully. There is a transformation going on for you. Maybe you've been going through some emotional healing. Maybe you are finally overcoming, walking away from a long-term relationship. Maybe you are totally transforming your emotions and the way that you approach the world. In turn, your security is changing, and also your role in your career or in your workspace. So when the 8th and the 10th house work together, there's lots of power to be able to have a transformation of your job. Now listen, Virgo risings, okay, especially. There's lots of change coming in your career, whether it's the place that you're working in and you feel those changes coming that have been already kind of in motion since February, or you're looking for a new job, or you know that it's the end of one, you know, period of time at your job and the beginning of another. Pay attention to this energy. It is very strong between now and June. Many people are going to change jobs, take new jobs, look for a new job, launch a business. All kinds of things are going to shift, and it's important for you to get your money right and focus on what you need for security now, so when these changes come, they're not so startling. Where you're going to have friction is between your 9th and your 6th house. So this is, you know, maybe you're needing to learn more on the job skills. Maybe you're needing to take courses. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of organization at work or a lot of legal matters and needing to get that in order. Many of you guys are realizing that there have been some health issues that have come up with Saturn in your 6th house. And there is a need to focus more on educating and learning more about your health. But not just your health, also how your spiritual perspectives and your day-to-day 9th house routines play a role in your health. And you're finding that it's about mind, body, and spirit, not just the body. And certainly Virgo can overthink. So what may be missing may not necessarily even be a diet or a schedule change. It may be that you need to integrate more faith into your everyday life. For Libra rising, your 7th and 9th house are working together. So you're seeing the bigger picture in your relationships. You're realizing that 2 is better than 1. You have an opportunity to travel with a partner. There was a lot of communication and future planning with partners about where you're going, whether you're planning a trip or you're planning some longer trip later in the year. There's also a great deal of emphasis on relationships and philosophies in relationships. And this is definitely a very busy month for Libras with the Sun in Aries, where you're seeing the right people flock to you and the wrong people fall away. So pay attention to that and appreciate the bigger picture that you're getting when it comes to relationships. And hopefully some of you guys have an opportunity to plan a trip or go on a trip with a partner, because it looks excellent in April, really all the way up until June. Where you're having some friction is going to be between the 8th and the 5th house. So the 8th house is transformation of your partner's finances or psychological transformations, sexual transformations. Libra, this month's going to be a little bit of a doozy for you, because there's going to be lots of changes, either with your finances and an unexpected bill can pop up, or you're going to find that maybe your partner quits working, or maybe they unexpectedly have money show up. Something about that at the end of the month is really something to watch out for, and it can definitely be up and down for the next couple of weeks. And that's where you have to put your heads together, you know, with your partners. And that full moon in your 2nd house is really going to show you where you can work with somebody else when it comes to financial shifts and challenges. But what I'm really looking at is the 5th house, and where the 8th and the 5th house are kind of going back and forth. And what I think is this can be about working with other people to come up with new innovative ways to make money, or to fund your creative projects, or campaigns to make more money, or how your hobbies are really putting the pressure on you to step into your own personal, I think, star power and really show the world what you have to offer, because it can have an opportunity to open those financial doors and solve some of those challenges that you're experiencing. For Scorpio, your 6th and your 8th house are working well together. So this is putting a great deal of emphasis on your health and your daily routine, your pets, getting organized, making transformations in your diet, detoxing, purging, clearing things out, and saying bye-bye to bad habits. especially right around the new moon. That's a very potent time to commit to a new diet, a new routine, some new way of approaching your health, and also taking good care of your furry friends. Where it works well with the 8th house is it can show that that's actually paying off on a psychological level, and perhaps where physical fitness can actually make you feel better emotionally. It can be a great time to get to the bottom of health issues, especially if you're having digestional or dietary issues. And the 8th house can also shine a light on where we're having attachments energetically that are affecting our health. So it takes more like a metaphysical kind of spin, where it's not just eating well and exercising, but it's also clearing your energy and clearing your lower chakras, which deal with the reproductive organs. The friction is between your 7th and 4th house. So for Scorpio and Scorpio risings, a lot of what's going on right now is like you and your partner can be at odds about your living quarters and what is and is not working in your home. You guys might have difference of opinions on how you want to run the house or where you want to live. So be kind, take your time, especially with all those planets in your 7th house. If you have a partner that is a Scorpio or a Taurus, or you're one of the two, if that's your rising sign, what you'll see is just like there's going to be a meeting of the minds that's going to happen this month about what's the best course of action when it comes to dealing with a home or family matter. Family drama can come up and it can definitely affect the relationship. There's also possibly going to be changes happening within the home, and you need to find the middle ground when it comes to making agreements that deal with home and family. Okay? So watch out for that, Scorpio. So for Sagittarius, this is your 5th and your 7th house working very well together. So what this means is like, it's all romance, baby. It's romance, it's creativity. Potential partnerships might be off the hook. You might be working on a couple different projects with different people. You know, the 5th house is where we fall in love, and it deals with children, and it deals with romance and our creative projects. And the 7th house is relationships. So it can be like super hardcore falling in love time, super hardcore baby making time, super hardcore talking about getting married time. All of these things may potentially come up. It can also be about you linking up with somebody and finding that perfect partner for a creative project and just full steam ahead. Where you're going to have some friction is your 6th and your 3rd house. So this is like how you communicate, and really keep a calendar this month so you make sure that you're on task and that you're not like overbooking yourself or double booking yourself. Take time to breathe, take time to walk, really work through things. Audiobooks and new podcasts and things that relate to just bettering yourself and bettering your health and your day-to-day routine are great. Watch out for conflicts with vehicles, which might actually throw your schedule into a tailspin. Pay attention. Also, siblings or neighbors, there can be conflict there, or issues with one of your family members having a health problem. And keep an eye on those dogs and cats and all of your other furry and slimy friends. Sometimes we can see some friction happening when you see issues in the 6th house. For Capricorn, your 4th and 6th house are working together seamlessly. This is an awesome time to emotionally and literally clean house. You should be spring cleaning. If you are looking to find a new place, if you are looking to get your place organized, if you are looking to finally declutter and then deal with all of your emotional stuff that is still kind of coming out, this is a wonderful time to do that. The 4th house is where we deal with our home and our family and our emotions. The 6th house is where we get organized and we feel healthier. So these two working together really support you on a physical and on an emotional level. The friction is between your 5th and your 2nd house. I'm going to keep it real with you. You guys have gone through like the gauntlet the last couple of years. When we're dealing with squares between the 2nd and the 5th house, I see it as how much are you willing to invest into your heart? Are you willing to put up a little bit of money or a little bit of cash to fuel a hobby, which might actually be quite successful? How much do you want love? How much do you want security? How much do you want stability? It's really pushing you pretty hardcore to commit to some financial goals and maybe kind of scale back a little bit financially with Saturn in your 2nd, so you can really focus on bringing in all of the goodies that the fifth house has to offer. So you might have to scale back on your spending so you can start a new hobby. But the second house also deals with self-esteem and really working on self-esteem issues, so that way you can get those projects out and you can feel confident, and working on your self-esteem so you can also feel like you can come out into the fifth house and you can date and you can feel lovable and attractive, even though some of you guys think you're prickly. I love Capricorns. And for Aquarius, what is working for you this month is the third and the fifth house. So you have an opportunity here to really put quite a bit of emphasis on moving forward and getting some of these projects that you've been talking about finally up and off the ground, seeing those come together, seeing that you have an opportunity to, make those moves, set those plans, get your calendar full, start writing something, start talking about something, especially if you're trying to write a book or take a course or you're trying to learn a new hobby. It can be really good also for you to be talking about going on a road trip with a lover, or talking about children if that's something that's important to you, and the plans forward with kids or how to raise kids. Where there's friction is between your fourth and your first house. So I think more than any other sign this year, Aquarians are getting a little restless and they're having a hard time staying in one place because Saturn in your first is not playing so well with Uranus in your fourth. And many of you guys want to move, or you want to relocate, or you want property, or you want to have a place that you can go and connect in nature. So what's cool is if you can't make those moves yet, then I really recommend getting out and about and going on a short distance trip, so that way you can alleviate some of that friction that you're feeling between Saturn and Uranus. For Pisces, this is your second and fourth house working together beautifully. What this puts a lot of emphasis on is building in your financial sector, really focusing on your creative talents, allowing yourself to really focus on how you're funneling that into your home and how your finances really lay the groundwork for long-term future planning. So you have a lot of positive energy dancing in your second house, helping you figure out how to make more money and how to bring more money in and shine a light on your personal talents. Be mindful that there can be a lot more spending going on here than usual, money in, money out, especially when it's in Aries. But it's all funneling into the fourth house, which is cool. So I think that that gives you the opportunity to start thinking more long-term about where you want to buy a home. Do you have enough money? Are you making enough money to support your family? Does family need help? So that's great. Where the friction is between your third and your 12th house. So Pisces, basically, there's a lot of ideas that are floating around. I feel like a lot of these issues might manifest as anxiety. They might manifest as stress. They might manifest as sleep issues, sleep disorders. My recommendation is to work with that square and do your best to really focus on journaling, getting your ideas out there, meditating, taking time away, maybe talking to some of your spiritual coaches or some of your readers or spiritual people. If you're not communicating very well and you're feeling like your head is just all over the place because you're just constantly thinking about things, my advice is come up with a routine to sit down and journal and get it all out, because if people aren't understanding you very well or you don't feel so communicative, take time alone to reflect. This is also Saturn, one sign behind you, so it's doing a lot of clearing subconsciously when you sleep, so you need more sleep. All right, guys, that was quite an hour and a half together. I love doing these. I'm so glad that I am back and I am able to nerd out with you once a week and talk about what's going on with the current astro weather. If you like this, please subscribe, like, comment, share. I will be back next week where we are going to start talking about the new moon in Aries and the best ways for you to make the most of that lunation and what to expect from the transits revolving around that moon. Until next time, I will see all of you guys very soon. You take care. Bye-bye.